Most operational excellence programs do not fail because the tools are wrong. They do not fail because 5S is a bad idea, or they do not fail because PDCA does not work. They do not fail because value stream mapping, standard work, or root cause analysis are outdated. Most of the time, operational excellence fails because it never becomes the way the business actually runs. It becomes a project, becomes a presentation, becomes a training class, and most often it becomes something that the lean people are responsible for. But it never becomes the daily operating system of the factory. And that is what I want to talk about today. Welcome to the Operational Excellence Field Guide, the podcast for leaders, supervisors, engineers, and improvement professionals who are trying to make real operational improvement happen where it matters most, on the floor, in the process, with the people doing the work. I'm Tim Ferguson. This podcast is about practical leadership, factory transformation, continuous improvement, quality, problem solving, and the daily discipline required to move from firefighting to true operational excellence. Today's episode is called Why Operational Excellence Fails on the Factory Floor. For this episode, I'm using AI-generated interviewer voice to help structure the conversation. However, the answers, stories, and opinions are all my own.
Tim, when you say operational excellence fails on the factory floor, what do you mean?
Been around enough factories, enough improvement projects, and enough leadership meetings to notice a pattern. Almost every organization says that they want operational excellence. They want better quality, they want better delivery and lower cost. They want engaged employees, and they want less firefighting and better accountability. They want a culture of continuous improvement. But wanting those things and building the operating discipline to achieve those things are two very different things. And the gap is where a lot of operational excellence efforts start to fall apart. One of the biggest mistakes companies make is treating operational excellence as a program instead of a way of running the business. The program has a launch date, the program has posters, training slides, have a champion, and the program has a few projects. But a way of running business shows up every single day. It shows up in the morning meeting. It shows up in how leaders respond to the problems they face. It shows up in how supervisors follow up, how metrics are reviewed. It shows up in how standards are created, followed, and improved. And it shows up in whether problems are hidden, blamed, or solved. That is the difference. And this is where I think leaders have to be honest with themselves. You cannot PowerPoint your way into operational excellence. At some point, the work has to leave the conference room and show up in the actual behavior of the organization.
Is the problem usually the tools, or is it how people use them?
Well, the first reason operational excellence fails is not because of the tools. The tools usually work when they're actually used. 5S works, standard work works, PDCA works, A3 thinking works, root cause analysis works, visual management works, and daily accountability works. The problem is that we often use the tools without changing the thinking. We put tape on the floor and call it 5S. We create a checklist and call it standard work. We fill out a form and call it PDCA. We make a fishbone diagram and assume we have done root cause analysis. But the tool is not the outcome. The tool is only useful if it changes the conversation, changes the behavior, and improves the process. A 5S audit that does not lead to ownership, it's just paperwork. A PDCA form that does not create learning, it's just documentation. A metric board that no one uses to make decisions, it's just decoration. A Kaizen event that creates a temporary improvement, but no follow-up system, is just an event. And I think that is one of the hard lessons of operational excellence. The tools are really quite simple. The discipline, that's where it's hard.
Why do you say the floor tells the truth?
So a lot of organizations look good in meetings. The charts are clean, the action lists are full, the improvement plans are documented, the metrics are color-coded, and the language sounds right. But the real test is what happens after the meeting. Does someone follow up? Does the supervisor even know what changed? Does the operator understand the new standards? Does the problem get verified at the source? Does leadership remove the barrier? Does the improvement sustain 2 weeks later? Does anyone go back and check? That is where operational excellence either becomes real or fades away. I've seen many cases where the meeting made everyone feel like progress was happening, but when you walk to the floor, nothing had changed. Same problems, still see the same workarounds, just as much confusion, still have missing parts, the same quality issues, and of course the firefighting. And that is frustrating, but it is also revealing, because the floor will always tell you the truth. The floor does not care what the slide deck says. The floor shows whether the system is working or not.
What role does leadership play in whether improvement sticks?
Well, another reason operational excellence fails is because leaders underestimate how much their behavior shapes culture. If leaders only care about today's output, then people will protect today's output at the expense of tomorrow's improvement. If leaders punish bad news, people will hide problems. And if leaders ask for root cause but reward quick fixes, people will learn to chase symptoms. If leaders say safety and quality come first, but only react emotionally to missed shipments, the organization learns what really matters. People pay attention to what leaders tolerate, what leaders question, what leaders follow up on, and what leaders ignore. That is their culture. Culture is not what is written on the wall. Culture is what people believe will actually happen based on experience. So if a company says, we want a problem-solving culture, but every problem turns into blame, they will not get problem-solving. They will get silence. If a company says, we want continuous improvement, but leaders never make time for improvement work, they will not get continuous improvement. They will get survival mode, firefighting. If a company says, we want standard work, but leaders allow every area to operate differently with no follow-up, they will not get standard work, they will get variation. Operational excellence requires leaders to model the behavior they expect from the organization. That does not mean leaders need to have all the answers. In fact, one of the most powerful things a leader can do is stop pretending they have all the answers and start asking better questions. What is the standard? What is actually happening? Where's the gap? What's changed? What have we tried? What did we learn? What support do you need? When will we check again? These questions sound simple, but asked consistently, they change the way an organization thinks.
You talk a lot about firefighting. Why does firefighting become such a problem?
One of the biggest enemies of operational excellence is firefighting. And the difficult thing about firefighting is that it feels productive. When the line is down and someone gets it running again, they look like a hero. When a shipment is late and someone expedites parts, they look committed. When a quality issue appears and people scramble to sort product, they look responsive. And to be fair, sometimes those things are necessary. Factories have real problems. Customers need product. Production has to run. But if all we ever do is respond, we never improve. Firefighting becomes dangerous when it becomes the normal operating model, because firefighting consumes the time, energy, and attention that should be used to eliminate the source of the fire. The same problem comes back next week. The same shortage happens next month. The same defects appear again and again. The same schedule issues repeats, and the same equipment problem returns. And every time it comes back, people get a little more tired, a little more frustrated, and a little more convinced that this is just how it is. That phrase, this is just how it is one of the warning signs of a broken improvement culture. Because once people accept chronic problems as normal, improvement becomes very difficult. Operational excellence requires a different mindset. It does not ignore today's problems, but it also asks, why did this happen? Why was the process vulnerable? Why did the system allow this to repeat? What standards were missing? What signals failed? What decision was delayed? What conditions are we walking past every day? This is the shift from firefighting to problem solving.
What is one mistake you made or saw earlier in your career that taught you this lesson?
Another reason operational excellence fails is because improvement activity gets disconnected from the business priorities. People are busy doing projects, but the projects do not clearly connect to the most important business needs. You might have a 5S project in one area, a Kaizen event somewhere else, a few problem-solving activities, and some training classes. But when you step back, it is not clear how all of them connect. What problem are we trying to solve as a business? Is it delivery? Is it quality? Cost? Or lead time? Is it capacity? Employee training? Or is it inventory? Or customer complaints? Operational excellence should not be random acts of improvement. It should be focused. The best improvement systems connect strategy to daily execution. That means leaders need to be clear about the vital few and priorities. Then the organization needs to translate those priorities into meaningful work at the department, the team, and the process level. If on-time delivery is the biggest business issue, then improvement work should be visibly connected to flow, schedule adherence, constraints, material availability, and process reliability. If quality is the biggest issue, then improvement work should be connected to defect prevention, process control, inspection effectiveness, training, and root cause elimination. If labor productivity is the issue, then improvement work should be connected to standard work, line balancing, training effectiveness, layout, and waste reduction. This is where operational excellence becomes powerful, not when it is a collection of tools, but when it becomes the method by which the business improves its most important results.
You say follow-up is often the missing ingredient. Why is follow-up so important, and why do so many improvement efforts fall apart without it?
If I had to identify one simple thing that separates successful improvement from failed improvement, it would be follow-up. No slogans, no software, no big binders, no more complicated templates, just follow-up. Did we do what we said we were going to do? And did it work? Did we verify it at the process? Did we update the standard? Did we train the people affected? Did the metric move? Did the problem stay solved? What did we learn? Without follow-up, improvement becomes wishful thinking. Follow-up is where accountability becomes real. And I do not mean accountability in the negative sense. I do not mean blame. I mean the discipline of closing the loop. A good leader closes loops. A good supervisor closes loops. A good improvement system closes loops. That is why PDCA is so important, not because it is a form, because it forces the organization to think in cycles. You plan, you do, you check, and then you act. The check and act are where many organizations fail. They plan, they do, then they move on. But they do not check deeply enough, and they do not act on what they learn. So the same issue keeps coming back.
What should a supervisor or manager do differently tomorrow?
So if you are a leader listening to this and you are trying to build real operational excellence, where do you start? I would start with 3 things. First, go and see the process. Do not rely only on reports. Do not rely only on conference room discussions. Go to the floor. Watch the work. Talk to the people doing the work. Look for the gap between what is supposed to happen and what is actually happening. Second, pick a small number of important problems. Do not try to fix everything at once. Choose problems that matter to the business and matter to the people doing the work. Make the connection clear. And third, build a follow-up rhythm. This may be the most important one. Have a daily or weekly cadence where problems, actions, owners, and results are reviewed. Keep it simple. Make it visible. Close the loop. Teach the organization that improvement is not an event. It is part of how we lead. You do not need to start with massive transformations. Start by making problems visible. Start by asking better questions. Start by following up, improving one process, and then start by proving that this time leadership is serious. Because people have seen problems come and go. They have seen posters go up and come down. They have seen initiatives launched and forgotten. What convinces people is consistency. When leaders keep showing up, keep asking, keep removing barriers, and keep closing the loop, people start to believe. And when people start to believe, improvement becomes possible. So let's bring this back. Operational excellence usually does not fail because the tools are bad. It fails because the tools are not connected to leadership behavior, daily management, business priorities, and follow-up. The floor will tell you the truth. If the process is still unstable, the culture is still reactive, and problems are still repeated, then the system is not working yet. That does not mean the organization has failed. It means the real work is still ahead. And that is what this podcast is going to focus on, the real work. Not textbook improvement, not buzzwords, not corporate slogans, but practical, field-tested operational excellence. If this episode was useful, I appreciate it if you follow the podcast so you do not miss future episodes. You can also connect with me through f2consultinggroup.com, where I share practical tools, thoughts, and resources around leadership, factory transformation, and operational improvements. And if you are interested in more of this type of thinking, my book expands on many of these lessons from the leadership and operations side. Thanks for listening to the Operational Excellence Field Guide. I'm Tim Ferguson, and I'll see you in the next episode.